the light is like right in the center of the room, so there's like nowhere I can be where
Yeah,
it's
but it's way better. I mean, it's way better than it normally is.
yeah. So I'll just go down to my desk down here instead of the standing desk.
Okay. All right. So we are live.
Got it.
We're live, and I'm going to go ahead and come back over here so I can see you. But we are live. I'm going to for anybody tuning in, give us a second so that I can watch on this so that because there's a delay from this to that.
Okay, got it.
All right. You know I'm not the best at I'm not the best technological person.
Uh, I don't really know who's really all that good with technology anymore. It's
Okay, so
all
I
pretty
can
much
see it. I wonder if I can tag you. I think it's only going to come on mine, and I'm going to have to share it with you when it's done.
okay. That's fine.
Okay. I
Okay.
did put a thing out. But
Yes,
anyway,
I shared
all
it
right,
too.
perfect. And I made, wait a minute, I need to make this public so everyone can see it. Edit. Okay. Yeah, heck. It's all right. Yeah. Give me just a second. I'm going to see if I can cross post. Well, no, that's settings, viewer. Okay. Well, all right. Well, we will just do this on my page and then I'll put it on your page. For some reason, it's not letting me, it's not letting me do public.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll just have to deal with it. All right. Yay. But that's okay. We've got this. And then, I will do some editing. Okay. So we do have a viewer. I can see that. I don't know who it is, but we do have a viewer.
Hello,
And
viewer.
hello. When I get my shit together, we'll be okay. Um, that's okay. Let's see here. Um, and I'll put it on your page. Oh.
I heard
I'm gonna
echo.
just yeah. So I muted it. All right.
Okay.
So we are here. I'm so glad we get to do this. This is always fun. So hello everybody and welcome. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Jill Carlyle, and I am the proud publisher and founder of Empowered Press and our three other imprints. Um, and tonight we are here and we're chatting with author Anton Jones and a little bit about Anton. I'll just fill you in on Anton and then I'll turn it over to him and let him tell us a little bit about himself. So Anton Jones is the author of the forthcoming fantasy novel, March of the Blood Red King. It's releasing November 28th from Page and Plot Press, which is an imprint of the Empowered Press. And I'll let Anton give you a little bit of background on himself, but I'm very excited to have him here. So Anton has published, this is his second book that he's publishing with us. However, his first book was a lyrical memoir, a memoir in verse, actually, not lyrical. It was a memoir in verse called This Is Not a Death Sentence. If you haven't bought your copy yet, you definitely need to. It's phenomenal. And it is nonfiction. This is his debut novel, and he's hit it out of the park. And I can't wait for this book to drop. We're very excited to be the publisher on record here and working with you. So, Anton, I am going to turn this over to you in just a second. But what I want to tell the viewers is that tonight we are diving into Anton's creativity, what gives him inspiration, what gives him anti-inspiration, how he balances all the things that he does. And you're going to hear from Anton in just a minute on all the different things that he does as a writer and an educator, and some behind the scenes insights into March of the Blood Red King and um, book two that's coming next year at some point. Well, 2027.
That's the goal, at least.
That's the goal. That's the goal. All right. So, Anton, welcome. I'm going to turn this over to you. Would you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and just anything you want everybody to know before we start the interview?
Yeah. So I teach English and creative writing at Concordia University, Chicago. I am very much involved with the university, and I also try to incorporate a lot of what the university has to offer, as well as my students, into the writing process. And it's one of the more enjoyable things I get to do as a professor. Other than that, though, I don't do a whole lot else. Other than Boohurt, which is where the other part of this comes from. Boohurt is uh, essentially medieval armored combat where you kind of fight to the last person standing, is the best way to describe it. And that is what I spend the majority of my time doing when I am not helping students or writing. But so that's pretty much me.
Great. And tell us a little bit about your first book,
Yeah.
and that will kind of segue us into how did you go from writing a book of poetry, a nonfiction work book of poetry, a memoir, so to
Mhm.
essentially, to wanting to write a full-fledged 145,000 word fantasy novel?
Yeah. So I've always liked playing with both aspects of poetry and fiction. Even when I was in high school, I was creating hybrid works. They weren't good, but I liked smashing together fiction and poetry. Once I got to college, my professor told me in a not so indirect way that I was just much better at poetry than I was at fiction. And so I went to doing poetry for my master's at Portland State University and spent a long time trying to create a poetry manuscript. And it wasn't until I got feedback from some other editors as well as Jill, where I decided to turn that poetry manuscript into a lyric memoir. Um, it had some good technical poetry to it, but the human element of it was missing. The me part, the me as a speaker, was completely missing from the poetry, even though it was kind of just dancing around the issue. The main issue being mental health, both for myself as well as a history of it in my family. And so that book spent about some of the oldest poems in that were about 10 years old. And just through the process of revision, through the MFA, and through me just improving gradually over time as a writer, it eventually reached its final form and then released last year as This Is Not a Death Sentence. Um, so from there, though, I've always still had this fascination with storytelling. Even in my creative writing classes, I make sure when we're in the poetry unit to not let my students forget the ways that fiction can help their poetry. They need to have a defined speaker. They need to have a setting. They need to have, if not a real plot, a cognitive plot that helps people work through the ideas of the poem. And they cannot forget these things. And so I like pulling elements from there and then pulling elements from poetry and putting them into fiction through the through the sonics, the way the sentences are written, through the different devices that appear and then come back and twist and turn and subvert. Um, I I wish I could write way more hybrid. I have still some poems that I snuck into March of the Blood Red King.
You
Um,
sure do.
yeah,
Yes.
but I have also written poems from the characters' points of view outside of the book, just to help me understand them a little bit more. And there's some of my favorite poems I've written in the past year or so. Um, so eventually there will be a second book of poems coming along, but that probably won't be for a while yet. Um,
Yeah.
so now, with March of the Blood Red King, do you want me to talk about inspirations for it?
Yeah, so let me just so yeah, so that my first question is, every writer literally has a spark kind of that starts it all, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I also wrote nonfiction and memoir first, and then was inspired to write a novel actually in the middle of my memoir. So every writer has that spark really that starts it all. So what first inspired March of the Blood? What first inspired the book, the story?
Me being incredibly competitive and petty is essentially the initial spark of me not really liking a lot of the fantasy that is
Hmm.
out and popular currently, whether that is in the visual medium, such as TV shows and film, or whether that's literature, just not being impressed. And because I'm a very competitive and petty person, I thought I could do better.
And
um,
you have, and you have, and you have. And I wouldn't call that petty. I would call that um respecting that, I mean, like looking at a market that is so oversaturated and moving it into a different direction, which is what we needed,
yeah,
in my opinion.
I'm just very one of my colleagues, Professor Jonathan Stalky, used the term he's jealous of his subject material. He's jealous. He teaches music, and then he's jealous of his profession, and he does not want his profession to have a lot of things in it that are just not fully capable of being what they could be. And I'm also jealous of writing, and I always see what could be better if there was a little bit more time and effort put into it. And
100%.
same thing with my students. I am jealous of their growth. I am jealous of what I want them to do for the world, and so I'm always very nitpicking them into oblivion until they can reach their full potential. So
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I'm a professor as well, for those of you that don't know, and I am a nitpicky too. I'm so nitpicky, and but that's what makes them better, right? And I love what you just said about I'm jealous of what they are, the potential, like, but not jealous in a bad way. It's like I'm jealous, and and I know you've got this in you, and so I'm going to make sure that I help to shape you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. So I do want to ask this one question so that people go, okay, well, viewers are maybe saying, well, it's fantasy, but you're saying it's not like all other fantasy. So what would fantasy right now, whenever you say the word fantasy, everyone thinks fairies.
Mhm.
Everyone thinks, I don't know. I'm not a big fantasy genre. But you know how I feel about your book. I mean, I did the developmental edit on it and I loved it. Um, what what would you compare your work to? What writer, what story? What's out there right now that you could, maybe not exactly, but that you could compare your work to, your story to?
So, um, I when asked that question, the easiest answer is that it's kind of a fusion of a couple of things. Um, so I really like um, grounded magical systems, grounded combat, things that make you think, and that there's no easy solutions or things that are
Hmm.
power fantasy essentially. Um, so rigid rules, systems that work, systems that matter, and are even historical if there's a precedent for them, be just because they're more practical. But I also like really gritty things, things that are kind of darker, where characters have to really suffer to get that brief glimpse of happiness that makes everything
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah.
But I'm also writing in a more accessible prose than I probably would normally be. Like, especially if you've
Okay.
gone from reading "This Is Not a Death Sentence" to this book, it's a much easier read. um,
Yeah.
so, um, so I would say it's a fusion between authors like Brandon Sanderson,
Yes.
who is
Yes.
who's writing fairly accessible but very rule heavy hard magic systems, with some of the aesthetics from Berserk, the manga, that without the sexual violence, and then with a lot of the themes and ideologies that Fyodor Dostoevsky brings into the world through some of his great novels of Russian literature. So it's a fusion of those three
I
things.
would say it absolutely is. I would say it absolutely is. Yeah, thank you for that. That way viewers know, like, okay, this isn't your typical Sarah J. Moss or whatever, whoever else. This is different, and I can't tell you how engaging this story is. I mean, and I'm not my favorite genre is not fantasy, but this is one of my favorite books that I've ever read. And I can't, I love it. So I mean, I know I published it, but I love the book. Um, okay, so well, I'm a fan of you, Anton. Always have been. I have been. I'm a fan. Um, so I want to ask this: how do you personally navigate creative droughts or disillusionment as both an artist and an academic?
Yeah. So routine. Um,
Love that.
yeah, it is
Love
really
that. Yes.
that simple. It's hard to do, but just knowing from the past and area and times of my life where I did not have routine, where I did not have that rigid structure, where I became more prevalent to some of the genetic things that are haunting me. I know how important routine is, and how important being consistent and grounded, and just doing everything a little bit at a time, day by day, until you just get better at it. So for me, it is an attempt to write every day. It's not always feasible, especially with some of the class loads I end up teaching. But I know there are at least 20 hours a week where I'm going to be writing. Usually
Love that.
Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, and then most of the time Sundays and Saturdays in the mornings as
I
well.
love that. I love that. I think that is such an important. I think that that's one of the best pieces of advice that we could give writers in general, but also students.
Yeah.
Not just students of writing, but just people in general. I mean, I'm a very routine oriented person, so I get it. And those of us that know you know that routine is very important to you, and but that also makes you someone that we can count on.
Yeah.
We know
Um,
this. We know this about you.
yeah, I do. I take pride in the idea that technically I'm supposed to be genetically a very unreliable and disorganized person, but that I am definitely not one of those. So,
You're no, you're not. You're an amazing, amazing person. Okay, let's look at some of the writing routine and teaching balance here. Well, we just talked about how you carve out time for your writing while managing classes, grading, and mentoring students, and that is just routine. You're solid. You have a solid routine, and that's how you do that. Just give us a little bit of a glimpse, just a little bit of a glimpse. I know because you've shared it with me before, but what does a productive writing day look like for you? You mentioned that, what'd you say, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then usually Sundays. But when does the writing happen for you? And can you sort of explain like, you have this routine, you do write, but when do you write? What does that look like for you?
um, eh, so I'm going to issue this as a warning that you do not have to have my
I
uh,
know what you're going to
my
say.
circadian rhythm to be a good writer or anything, or lack thereof. But I generally wake up very early in the morning just because my body decided that I'm done sleeping. And so I'm usually up around 3 in the morning. And I start writing, and then I usually write a chapter or two until cognitively I don't feel like I'm doing my greatest anymore, and then I will go lift and exercise to train for boo hurt. um, and so in the summer, when I can do this every day, I will usually come back from the lifting and then write some more. In the summer,
Great.
I try to write about 100,000 words. Um, it's not always feasible. It was not feasible this time around because most of it was doing editing, going back and forth on drafts. But the first time I was writing this book, it was 100,000 words, and then another 30,000 over winter break. This year, I got about 50,000 words on the second book done, and I've put in another 30,000 words in the couple of months since school has started too. So,
Great.
yeah.
Great. That's great. Have your students or your classroom experiences ever directly inspired characters or themes or dialogue in your fiction?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that.
My students know this too. That I am someone who um, will be. I can't turn the analytical part of my brain off. So when people are like reading or watching a film and they're like looking for different parts of the conversation that can act as foreshadowing or that setup, I am just doing that in regular conversation all the time. And it makes me kind of a bummer at parties, but so, but yeah, a lot of times I'm just analyzing why people are doing the way what they're doing. So what
That's
that's
what a writer does.
yeah,
That's what we do. That
yeah,
is what we do. That is what we do. Um, I get some of my greatest Substack uh, essays out on paper because I'm inspired by what is happening in my life. Or, like when I've written my novel, I wrote about a family that I wished that I would have had. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean everything is an inspiration for a writer,
yeah.
and it should
Um,
be.
there's a great Anne Lamott quote about she does a TED talk about for people who are scared to write about people who did bad things in their life.
Oh, they
Uh,
should have been nicer. They
Yep,
should have
that
been
is
nicer.
that is
Oh,
her quote. They should have been
that's
better people.
they should have
So
been better people. I say that all the time because I got lots of stuff to write about people. That's it's
yeah.
exactly. They should have been nicer. Okay. I love that. And you and I have probably had this conversation before, but let's share it with them. What advice would you give to writers who feel they don't have time to write because of demanding careers? You and I both have demanding careers, but yet we both find time to write. And you gave kind of a disclaimer where you're like, you don't have to get up at 3 o'clock to write, right? So give what advice would you give to writers that can say, I can't get up at 3 o'clock in the morning? What would you say? How would you tell them to carve out time?
You see this thing? Throw in the wood chipper. Um, it's it's not good for you or your writing time. So yeah, I am someone who's generally not on my phone most of the day, and I generally don't respond to texts or emails throughout the day, though they do come to my phone, but I'm mostly busy doing other things, or I've decided this is my time to write. I am not answering anything.
I love that.
Um,
I love that.
so a lot of people have more time than they think. They have just me sounding like a grumpy elderly man on the porch complaining about technology. But
Not you, Anton, not you.
yeah, I mean, like people spend a lot of time, more than time than they think, on like Instagram Reels or TikTok or YouTube.
Right.
It's those things are designed specifically to be accessible in a busy schedule, and they're designed to eat your time and to seductively lull you into continuing watching 1 or 2 minute videos, and you're like, oh yeah, it won't take that long, and then 3 hours goes by
You're
and you've
sucked
watched
in. Yeah,
so
you're
much
sucked in.
TikTok. So yeah, throw in a wood chipper, then start writing.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's talk a little bit. I want to talk about a couple things because we're not going to go, we're about 24 minutes in. So let's talk about a couple of other things that I think are really important so that viewers know what this, I want to talk a little bit about the general plot setup. So for readers who haven't yet entered the world of this book, of this fantasy world, can you give us a quick setup? Where does
Yeah.
the story begin and who are we following?
Yes. So this world begins with a trio of siblings: Roran, Arno, and Griselda. Roran is the oldest brother, and then Griselda is the middle sibling, and then Arno is the little brother. They're a pretty close knit family. They're the children of a blacksmith who can make, for whatever reason, magical weapons, for the lack of better terminology. And these weapons are being sought after by the country they currently live in because that country is losing a bad war. However, before the country can conscript him into the military to make the weapons for them, he dies. And no one has any of the information to recreate these weapons. And the country thinks that his children might, because of course they would. They're his heirs. They're going to inherit the process, unless for some reason the father decided not to tell them, which he didn't. He didn't tell them what they how to make the weapons, and so they were all kidnapped. And our opening is them being tortured for this information about how to make the weapons. So that's pretty much the political climate and setup to chapter 1.
Okay, perfect. So, without giving too much away, what central themes or emotional undercurrents actually drive the story?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very different. It's a very different, it's not your typical, it's just, I don't want to give too much away. And I want you to just talk about the central themes or emotional undercurrents.
Yeah. So when writing this book, I saw a lot of my students who have, from what I can see from my perspective, they're just apathetic. They are not necessarily caring about their studies, and that's fine. Sure, English is not for everyone, but it's more than just not caring about English. It's not caring about college, and it's more than just not caring about college. It's not caring about their future or what even
100%.
happens afterwards. And so it seems to me like a lot of these people don't have dreams, or that their dreams have already died. Not all of my students. A lot of my students are very lively and have very big dreams. But the question for me was, how do you keep living when your dreams are gone, or that they have died, or you've had to sacrifice for them? And that becomes part of the world building as well. So I wanted to see these characters either watch them react to their dreams being sacrificed, or losing them, or forcing them to make new ones, and then watching those ones go too. That's mainly the whole process, is just watching that cycle.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I love it. So, I want to talk a little bit about I definitely want to talk about the student involvement. I want to circle back to your students. Your students seem to play such a role of inspiration and such a role of they play they don't just play a role of your inspiration, but they've played a role in the actual birth of this book. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah,
Because you did something very unique here.
yeah. And that's one of the benefits of working with like a hybrid publisher. I get to make a little bit more of those kinds of moves that a traditional publisher I wouldn't be able to.
Right.
So initially, it started with the idea of having our students make the cover design, and I collaborated with my professors, or my colleagues in the art department, who plucked some students and alumni to make a competition for the cover design and the maps. And then we got a bunch of those pieces back, and we had a winner. And now that's Caleb Eglund, who won the cover design as well as the
Yes.
maps, and has been
Yes.
kind of tirelessly working on parts of this book ever since. He's got a trailer
Yes.
coming out soon.
Yes.
Um, so then I've had a lot of students who are part of my creative cohorts. It's not a class, it's just a group that meets on Monday nights. Um, Tonight, where we are all broken up into different groups based on the things that we're writing. And then they're all mixed together and they just kind of do a kind of like an MFA level workshop where they hold themselves
Nice.
accountable and they are consistently writing and giving each other pretty tough feedback. And I kind of just bounce in and oversee everything. And so those students had the opportunity to do a beta read if they wanted to. I did not force them to. If they wanted to, they could. So, so they gave me some really good feedback as well. And now I had a student who was a graduate last year who interned under me for a magazine where she was the social media manager as well as a lot of other things that helped making the magazine. And I just recently rehired her to do a lot of the social media stuff because I don't want to do it. Like I said, I want to throw my phone in the wood chipper half the time. So she is, that's Abby Porter. She's making a lot of the current social media posts on Instagram and Facebook. So,
Excellent.
and eventually, hopefully, this is the reach goal. I can do an audiobook. I've got a studio who, last time I checked, wanted to help with this, and they wanted to do it for free. That's Luke Underhill. And I have some students in the theater department who would love to voice act for it. So,
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. That's exciting. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I thought it was just so cool to work with all of your students, and Caleb's just so talented. So, for those of you who are going to run out and buy the book, which I know it's going to be all of you, you're going to be able to see Caleb's work in action, which is going to be the cover, which we have done. The cover reveal has been done. If you go to my page, you can see the cover on my page. You can also see the cover when you order the book. But also, you have to wait to see the maps. The maps will be inside the book. So you're going to have to buy the book to see the maps. And the maps are I was just blown away by the maps, so just very, very cool. But that was a lot of fun, Anton, being able to judge it and look at everything. And I feel like your students did such a good job with the beta read. But I do want to ask, did any of your students surprise you with their insights and their creative contributions?
Um, I kind of expected them to uh, to to deal with me the way that they did. They made comments in a very similar manners that I make comments on their own writing, which is, this is for your growth, but I'm going to be very harsh and blunt about it. So,
Yeah,
um, and I mean, like that was great. I like having that style of feedback. I like identifying the problem, being able to fix it, and and a lot of them did way more than just beta read. They left line by
they sure
line
did. They
comments.
sure did.
Yeah.
I
Um,
remember calling you going, I don't have time to read all of this.
yeah. So
And we don't have time to fix all of this because it's really good as it is.
yeah. Well, I mean, I did go through and I addressed all their.
You
I
taught
made
them
sure I
well.
addressed all of it.
Yeah, you taught them well.
Yeah, a
You
lot
taught
of
them well.
them were pretty on point, and the things that I were able to fix, especially sentence level things or things that were earlier on with some of the character dynamics, were incredibly improved because of their help.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, what's so cool is that we don't want to go too far over 30 minutes, but I think what this does is it allows us to be able to come back and do another interview. It allows us to be able to come back and do something else. So I think we will stop there. I think we were able to. I'm so glad that viewers are able to get to know you a little bit better. They've not heard of the book, so now that they know of the book, by the way, it will be out November 28th, which is Black Friday. So we're very excited about that. Very apropos there. But the book is on pre-order, and as soon as we get this Zoom feed, Facebook thing up, I will post the link for the pre-order I will pin it at the top of the comments in Facebook. Um, you will have the book in your hands before anybody else has it, at least a couple days. We will be shipping them out at least a couple of days prior to pub day. Um, other than that, I just want to thank you, Anton, and thank you really for being a part of of my publishing company. It's just an honor to work with you. It's been an honor to work with your students. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we close? But also, let's do this again right before the book comes out. Let's do another one, but right before the book comes out. We'll do it same Facebook style, Zoom, and I think it'll be fun maybe to get some people involved and maybe ask some questions and maybe have some sort of a roundtable. I think that would be fun for the next one.
Yeah. If we can do a Q&A, I'd love to answer any questions that anyone might have. But
Yeah,
we
let's
can
do
also
that. Yeah.
address some answer some questions that we didn't get to today as well.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do that. But just so everybody remembers, the book is on pre-order and it's something you don't want to miss. And I also, in our next Q&A and interview, I would love to talk about book two a little bit
Yeah,
more.
absolutely.
Um, make sure to stay connected to Anton. Anton, would you give everyone all of your socials? Where can they find you online? And where can they find you online and follow you?
I mean, like the handles,
Yeah, and
in
I'll leave them in the chat too.
yeah, you can find my Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and YouTube. Most of them have my goofy looking face on there. So ATJones43 is the handle for Instagram, and then it's just Anton Jones on Facebook.
Perfect. 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 Well, thank you, Anton, and thank you to everybody that has joined us, and thank you to those that will be watching this at a later date. It's been awesome. I can't wait for the book to come out. This is very exciting, and we will, in a couple weeks before the book comes out, I would say maybe like the week before, we'll do another, maybe a Wednesday, the week before. We'll get together on that and find out what our schedules are, and then we can go from there.
Absolutely.
All right, Anton. Thank you so, so much.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.